Okay, good afternoon. Today we're going to be talking about the World War One, the war to end all wars, and we're going to be discussing the causes of World War One and how this whole thing eventually gets going. With that being said, let's look at some of the key vocab and things that you need to know for this lesson. The country of Serbia, which we're going to be discussing, located in the Balkans. The Balkans, which is where this whole thing is going to get going. We're going to talk about that later on. The Triple Entente was an alliance that we're going to be discussing. And of course, the Triple Alliance, also another alliance that we're going to be discussing. Archduke Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. We're going to be talking about him and how his assassination is the trigger that leads to this war. Gavrilo Princip, who was the assassin. He was a member of a nationalist group known as the Black Hand. And of course, the next word is the Black Hand, also a nationalist group in Serbia. Gavrilo Princip was a part of. Powder keg, when I bring up the word powder keg, basically this means that this was like a huge barrel of gunpowder ready to explode, and we're going to refer to the Balkans as that. Sarajevo is where the assassination is going to take place. The word conscription is another word for draft. And then we're going to talk about the main militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. With that being said, let's talk about some of the events or some of the things that were going on before the war. Of course, in the last unit, we discussed imperialism and how imperialism led to a lot of competition between European countries, either in Africa or Asia or even the Americas. There was this huge competition. It created some jealousy among some of these European countries. So it was just a matter of time before eventually this is going to lead to some sort of conflict. But let's look at the main causes of World War One. And the first one is the letter M, which stands for militarism. Militarism is pretty much a buildup of the military. From the years of 1870 on up into the early 1900s, Prussia, who became Germany, began building a large military. They had militaristic ideas and places that they wanted to eventually take over. And of course, this buildup of the military created a sense of paranoia all throughout Europe. And a lot of the other European countries had to start building up their militaries just as well. Look at the next letter. The next letter is A, which stands for alliances. I mentioned the two major alliances, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance was the first one that was formed. It involved Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Italy. But the Triple Alliance was formed in the 1880s, and it was sort of done in secret. But I think some of the European countries did realize that there was some dealings that were going on between certain countries. The other alliance is the Triple Entente. The Triple Entente was formed in the early 1900s. It involved Russia, Great Britain, and France. And those countries would eventually form what would be known as the Allied powers later on. But the Triple Entente was formed almost really in response to the Triple Alliance, even though they had an idea who was sort of sided with who. But the Triple Entente was formed in response really to the Triple Alliance. What both of these alliances said pretty much was that if one country attacked another, then that means that these other countries would come to their aid. So if they were being attacked and you were in one of the alliances, naturally the other countries that you were in the alliance with would come and help defend you. Let's look at the next letter. The next letter is I, which is imperialism. Imperialism, again, we just discussed this. It's when one nation uses its power or exerts its power over another. Imperialism had taken place in Asia, Africa, and the Americas, and pretty much all throughout the world, which created this sense of competition between the European countries to see who could grab the most land see who could have the most colonies, and eventually see who could gain the most wealth. The last letter is N, which is nationalism. Of course, nationalism, when we talk about it, is pride in one's country. In this case, nationalism is when we see some of these Balkan countries wanting independence, not wanting to be part of the Austria-Hungarian Empire. They wanted to fight back and have their own nations because a lot of these places spoke different languages, they had different cultures, and so on. So nationalism was a key. The other part that nationalism plays is that once the war begins, there's going to be a sense of pride or a sense of urgency by the people living in these countries that were involved in the war. So, for instance, Germany was involved in the war, which meant all the German people wanted to protect the German nation, protect their culture, their language, their religions, and so on. So, nationalism, as the war cranks up, really escalates, and that's mainly due to this feeling that they had to protect their country, they had to defend their country. So, this sense of nationalism really played a big role at the start of the war. Now, what is going to be the trigger? We talked about the causes. Now, this is the trigger of the war. The trigger of the war is what we refer to as the powder keg in this case. Powder keg, again, is just a barrel full of gunpowder ready to explode, and the Balkans were just that. All of these countries that you see here on this map are in the Balkans: Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Macedonia, Albania, Bulgaria, Romania, and Croatia are all members of the Balkan countries, as well as Moldova over here. But the Balkans, of course, again, an unsettled area during the early 1900s. They didn't want to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire or the Austria-Hungary Empire. And so they wanted to form their own nations because they all spoke different languages. They all had different cultures. They didn't want to be part of this huge empire. And for that fact, this is going to lead to this event that starts World War I. So we said that the Balkans were the powder keg, then the assassination is the spark. Now let's talk a little bit about the assassination. The Archduke of Austria-Hungary is going to decide to travel to Sarajevo. Once he arrives there, there's going to be one attempt on his life when a bomb is actually thrown at his car. It doesn't explode. It doesn't injure him. But they keep on going as they parade through the streets of Sarajevo. And then this guy that you see here in the picture, his name is Gavrilo Princip, will emerge from the crowd, pulling a gun and shooting the Archduke and his wife, Sophie. Now, Gavrilo Princip was a member of a Serbian nationalist group. And of course, as we saw on the map, Serbia also was part of that group of countries that were part of the Austria-Hungarian Empire. And of course, he's not real happy that Serbia is a part of that empire. And so he lashes back by actually assassinating the Archduke. This is going to set into effect a chain of events that will lead to the beginning of the war. So this is the trigger or the spark that starts the war, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophie in Sarajevo. That's going to do it for this lesson. Make sure that you recorded your notes on your HyperDoc, and I will talk with you guys real soon.